Gibson dropped a new custom select guitar. It's kind of pricey, but I thought it was cool. They call it light charcoal, and it's got a heartwood maple top. Being the heartwood, that's what gives it that signature different colorations. Like, they didn't purposefully dye one side darker and leave the center pale. That's just the natural colorations within the wood itself. Besides that, it's basically just a regular Les Paul custom, as we have our regular Nashville style bridge, golden hardware, and pickups. And it appears they paired it with a black back. I would have loved to have seen a more exotic mahogany or maybe even an ash body. Yeah, that's exactly what this reminds me of. No wonder I was drawn to it. About 6 years ago, we documented an ash top Les Paul custom that had kind of a similar thing going on to it with that light ashy gray hue. But then when you flip it over to the back side, this one had an alder back to it. So it's not the mahogany, and they left it be a nice light natural color. And what makes this one even cooler is it was 70 spec with a maple neck and a volute. Oh man, it even had the Super 74 humbuckers and that correct logo. Wonder whatever happened to that guitar. I probably should have kept it. That thing's sweet. But anyways, I bring that up just in case you're disappointed with the black back. There is something similar out there. It's just going to be hard to find. But hear me out. To play with the heartwood, what do you guys think about an abalone inlay for our headstock? Maybe not for the fretboard, that could be too much, but I'm just talking the peg head veneer, similar to what we see here on the Abalone Sparkle Custom episode. The right piece of not too crazily colored abalone, I think, would match perfectly with that charcoal-y top. But hey, hold the phone. Let's zoom in really closely. Okay, it's not black. It's actually some sort of just a really, really, really dark stain because we can just barely see some wood grain there. Do you guys like this area in the wood? I know it matches up with like the whole stain thing, but it almost looks like a unintentional thing that they were trying to cover up with the toggle switch. But oh man, they didn't even do anything fancy with the pickups. That's a bit of a letdown, especially at such a premium price, $7,200. For reference, a regular Les Paul custom just in the ebony finish is $5,500 new. That would be a $1,700 premium on a slightly different finish, and for that particular version of a maple top. I suppose, what on earth is heartwood and why is it so expensive? According to Google, dense, central, non-living part of a tree trunk that's typically darker than the surrounding sapwood. Interesting. So if you slice a tree, this area right here, that dark spot, is the heartwood. So I imagine when they cut it, it has like some heartwood, but it's not like all heartwood. Otherwise, you wouldn't get this coloration streak. So I would assume maybe only this part's the actual heartwood. You know what would be really cool? A live edge Les Paul. Even if it's just for the top and they use the live edge as the binding. Looks like Harp Guitar Music did something similar. I would probably modify it a bit more. This builder has something a little bit closer to what I'm thinking. This is just a whole live edge burl thing. It's kind of cool for a box guitar, I guess. But what I'm saying is just leave the barky part as the external binding and then have the body be regular good stuff. I suppose you can get about the exact same effect with Cocobolo or rosewood style binding. In a roundabout way, I've already got a guitar like that in my collection, but it just looks so nice. I'd like to see it on more, because that's not something Gibson really does in the modern era. But anyways, if you're not into Les Pauls, what are you doing on my show? Get out of here. Nah, just kidding. They also did an SG up like this. However, normally SG Customs do not get the figure top. Now, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of maple top SG models out there now with the SG Supreme and other modern ones being in production. But it's always nice to see it when it's a lighter color like this. This one, similar to the Les Paul, it's got some dark streaks within it. It's made of the same heartwood. It's got the figuring in the golden hardware. But I think they went a little bit lighter on the back color for this one. Or maybe that's just how this particular one photographed, because that's a nice dark rustic color. It's not quite the DC rust finish. That is my favorite color on an SG. It doesn't look the greatest on a maple top. I mean, it's a nice dark kind of grayish hue, I guess you could say. But when paired with mahogany, that's where it shines. So any type of all mahogany guitar, it just brings that certain golden natural hue out while still having that swampy grayish green. This one's a bit darker with some molasses blent in. But being a maple top SG, when you look at it on the side, you get a little bit of maple, a little bit of mahogany to pair with your unique wood grain. You've got some circles going on there and some more staining. And here's a full shot of the front and back just to take in for a second. How much do you think this one is? Okay, nice. A little bit cheaper than the Les Paul at $65. But despite being cheaper, it's still a $1,700 premium from a regular SG Custom. However, this one feels a little bit more worth it because not all of those are flame tops, and that completely changed the construction of this guitar. But if those aren't quite to your style, do you remember these? We talked about them about a year or so when they first came out, but the new ones reminded me of this so much. I just love exotic tops like this, things you don't see all the time. I think that's what it is for me personally. I've seen so many Les Pauls. I've had countless come through my hands and be documented on the show. If I was buying my first Les Paul, no, this is not what I would want, but I fall into that category where I like the weird, unique, and unusual. An example of one of those guitars for my collection is a 68 reissue Crimson Division Burl top. I wish it moved a little bit more, but the wood grain pattern's unique. Reminds me of Doritos. But this was a Sapele top series with regular mahogany on the back. Just as extra bonus points, of course, they threw a stinger on there. And I do like the addition of the light colored mahogany neck. I'm sure that wasn't an intentional choice. It just happens to be the variations of within the wood. But it contrasts so beautifully against our extended stinger. And even the body itself had some interesting grain lines. Now do keep in mind, this is another exclusive custom select series, which just means they make a small number of these. So if you add to cart and check out, it's not because this hasn't sold in a year for $8,100. It's because this is a stock photo. They're all gonna vary, which could be a good or a bad thing depending on how you feel about this giant streak right here. Ooh, here's an idea. Do a spotlight reissue with the quilted Sapele for the center, and then just do your regular maple on the edge. So there was also an SG. Although arguably it was a little bit more interesting because it was just a straight up quilted Sapele body, which was also adorned with the stinger. Now these ones are completely sold out. Although to be fair, maybe they just made less of those because they didn't have enough wood to create them. But also within the custom selects, they have a brand new finish offered. It's called Copper Iridescent. Where have we heard that one before? Well, it was the Joe Bonamassa release from last year, the Copper Iridescent that later became the NAMM show models. It also had one of those. This is the only time I've ever seen that color in the flesh, though. The Epiphone made it look a little bit darker. I mean, looking at some of Joe's photos here, it just depends on the lighting situation. But the point I'm trying to get across is, that doesn't look anything like what we've been sold here lately. Well, you know what? Now that I come back to that NAMM reissue model, I guess it is a little bit brighter. Like you can see how the light hits it right there. And SGs are pretty good at showing you all the angles, but this still looks just a little bit more tan. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I guess I'll let the future buyer decide. But did you notice? They gave you a fancy little pick guard here. It's white with a single band of black within it. And I suppose the regular white ones also have that. But something about it not being white on white just makes that black layer pop even more. What do you guys think? Is that a $1,700 premium? Really? $1,100 just for the finish? That seems a little excessive, but I've paid more than that for a custom color, so it's, I guess, not all that crazy if you're dyed in the wool within the Gibson game. I think you'd be better off buying one of the Les Pauls as far as long-term value, because at least this was some sort of a collector's limited edition that people will remember. I just don't see that SG sticking with someone. But if you can't find one of those NAMM ones, they actually brought it out to a 57 gold top. And okay, I wanted to see what the premium was this time, so $5,000 to $58,000. That's only an $800 premium. Is it because they only had to do the top because it's a top guitar? I wish I could say I like it, but I would have loved to have seen it get the SG treatment with a 3-ply white, black, white Les Paul pickguard. I don't think I've ever seen that. And then you guys can fill in the rest as far as the pickup rings and everything. Well, okay, you convinced me to do it. Here's a really poor mock-up of that. Which one do you like better? Or take a page out of the Sapele book and give you a nice black stinger. But hey, I give him props for at least bringing out that color onto a few other things. Although if I bought that 55 NAMM show limited edition release, I'd be kind of sad, because a lot of those colors, people collected them because they thought they wouldn't see them on others. But I suppose it's not necessarily just P90 guitars. But the hardware has quite the patina on this one, although that appears to be intentional. In other Gibson news, surprise, surprise, another pretty little box that has pickups in it. And if you're saying, hey, Trogly, haven't we already done this 2 other times? Yes, this is Series 3 of the Collector's Edition 59 Humbuckers. At first glance, they look the exact same. The name of the game is they make 1,000 of each series and they sell them to people willing to pay $1,000. They tote these as the most historically correct PAF reissues ever. And if you think about it, that's about $500 a pop, but you get this ridiculously cool little box that's stylized after a Lifton. It's even got the badge and the pink interior. And whether or not you put any value on the additional paperwork that they give you, I'll leave that up to you. And so far, the used market has been very favorable to these. They only lose like $200 off a brand new. But if you're curious, what is the difference? Series 3 utilizes Alnico 3 rough cast magnets. And if you pop the covers off, you get double vintage white bobbins. Series 2, surprise, surprise, Alnico 2 magnets, this time zebra bobbins. And Series 1, Alnico 1, no, Alnico 4. And also double white. I thought for sure that'd say double black. But essentially, as the story goes, the original PAFs, they varied, depending on year, what they had available. So they're offering you the different versions that are out there so you can choose the set you like the best. That's part of the reason why they hired that Brandon Wound guy to join their team, is to create stuff like this. I wish I could comment whether these are actually life-changing or not, but I've never had the pleasure of having one of them. But all right, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed our episode tonight. Just a nice chillax day, talking about a couple of guitars. Nothing earth-shattering or groundbreaking, but I appreciate you tuning in anyways, because I'm sure we're going to have enough of that here shortly. But all right, take care.